this is just a sample. But let's just say they gave me $10 million. I could actually generate that and push it to something like $50 million worth of return. All right, because I could lease it. And the other beauty of lease is, you know, the upkeep, the change, and as you get to the end of the year, if you already had a lease, guess what happens to your budget? It's already there, right? So when you say, okay, I need a new one, you say, hey, I'm going to trade this one in. I'm going to get your new latest widget wadget, all right? And as long as the lease isn't that much more, I'm already in play, all right? So you're kind of doing two things at once. One, you're developing something for the future that allows you to not have to go back out, you know, deal with all the impacts of it. Last thing is consequences. So many people say, what if I don't do this? What if I don't okay this purchase? What's going to happen? All right? Well, I can tell you one thing that you have to look at is maybe they're not going to get it as fast. Maybe they're going to pay more money for it. You know, there's going to be some other issues. Confidentiality. You know, how is it secured? One of the beauties of an in-plan is you're captive. All right? You're there to service them. When the governor calls me up and he says, come down here, I need this printed right away, guess where I am? I'm right there. If I'm not there, I got somebody to be there right away. I say, yes, Jerry. How many do you want? Okay, well, when do you need it? Why, 1 o'clock. Okay, let's go.
And you don't say no.
And you don't say no. All right? So one of the consequences is Jerry Brown cannot have his printing. All right? You tell him that. I can tell you what he'll tell you. The legislative body. Oh, we're going to start being late, and you can't vote on that bill, and you can't get it off to the governor's desk to get approved, and your constituents going to be mad. All right? So you place, you know, well, you got school registration starting, and if you don't do this, you're not going to get registration out there. You're not going to get people to do what needs to happen. All right? So you build the consequences. One of the big consequences, people. People. All right? I shouldn't say the word union, but I will. All right? In terms of state government, the SEIU has a very strong desire to continue to keep their members working and to keep their pension money coming in. All right? So if I say, if we don't do this, I've got to lay off 100 people. And they'll be out there picketing in their little purple shirts. Jerry, down with Jerry. You know, he's the rat. There'll be a big rat there. You know? You know? And they're saying, why didn't you do something? All right? So, worst case scenario is at least you present it, and at least you have documentation so that when the TV cameras are out there, you're calling your public affairs people, sorry, I sent this, it didn't get approved, and that 1965 vintage press, you know, if you come to my plant, we have a full machine shop. It does nothing but make parts, all right? 3 shifts, steady. You know, I mean, it's a huge machine shop, the latest stuff, because you can't buy parts. And guess what? When that press breaks down at 2 in the morning, I got to go make a part. And I got somebody make a part, all right? So the consequence is, if you don't replace this stuff, you're just going to have to buy a bigger machine shop. And so that's kind of it. The attachments, you know, again, the various vendors out there and IPMA and various people out there, they're more than happy to help you do an assessment, to help you build your case, all right, to give you documentation that you can add to this. Some people, when it comes to a purchase, they want to see all the little graphs and charts and so on. Other people, they get it. Hey, I got a problem here. I've got a solution. It's real easy, all right? So that's kind of my little thing. And as a IPMA member, I'm available. I've always been available because I think sharing my knowledge and talking with people is very important. And so you can get a hold of me. I'm at 7th and Richard. I'm usually there all the time. and I love it. I love printing. I've been in printing since my dad kicked me out of a cradle and said, you can run that. And if you run that, I'll give you a donut. And I'm getting a donut every day. Now I'm getting an additional donut. But you know, My dad would have been, he would have been written up in paper. I think about, I was playing on paper cutters, Army guys in there, you know, ink all over me. You know, here's this 5-year-old with just ink everywhere, you know. So I'm sure if you cut me, you'll see PMS 185 red or something. But it just, you know, I love the business. I'm passionate about it, but I'm passionate about the people. You know, I was just at a reunion yesterday for a number of us old guys. And what was very interesting is just how all of these guys have been so passionate about their industry all these years. And they see the change, and some of them said, I'm done, I'm retired. And other ones have said, no, wait till you see the latest thing that I have. All right? Now, again, I get back. Make sure it's a must, not a nice. All right? My kids and my grandkids, I'm the ATM machine. And it's like, I've got to have this, you know? And why is it you have to have this? All right? So that's my question, and I'm sure you get those questions. So I'll entertain any quick questions, and then we'll do the next thing here. So hopefully the old-fashioned just talk to you works.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
I mean,
Did it get approved?
Yeah.
yes, it did.
Very good.
So yes, well, it's somewhat approved. They're still working on the data leakage.
It depends for the network.
I can't believe it. You know, well, you know, I won't go there, but you know, that's the new tangle that we have, is this whole IT part of it. All right, and that there's a different element to it, and you need to work on that first too. You need to determine that just because you got it, what are you going to need to support it? All right, and if you don't have enough bandwidth. I have enough bandwidth, but if you don't have enough bandwidth, you're in trouble. So, yeah.
Okay, can I make a couple comments?
Yeah.
When I first met Jerry, I had a full head of hair, and that little white stripe in the front of his was a lot more obvious than it is now. And a couple of things. One is it's nice to see somebody of a particular vintage to be able to, not just for the sake of change, but to understand the economics of it and the social impact of it. And be able to communicate that across a broad spectrum of people, whether it's at the state legislature or to a group of his peers. And further, Barbara and I walked through the plant with Jerry this morning, and you know, it's a good feeling having somebody like Jerry in charge of the state's printing budget. You're probably the least.
What was that PO I had to approve?
No, there's no quid pro quo on this one either. But you're what, the 49th?
49.
49th state printer for the state of California, and I've probably known 5 or 6 of them, I think. And I feel really good about where my tax dollars are going and what they're being utilized for. And Jerry's got a great vision, and I highly recommend that you leverage his insights, knowledge, and skill sets for your own operations. And I know he's most generous with his time and knowledge, so thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah. The gray hair comes from a number of things, but it was my daughters and my granddaughters. I love it. I'm you know, available. You know, if you want me to come down and look at your operation and give you my little assessment, and I give you an independent, you know, input on it. You may have to buy me lunch or a donut. But certainly, I know the value of us sharing knowledge. And this is a great organization. I hope we can develop an active chapter here in Northern California. I really like to see it because I think you're going to get a lot of benefit from it. So that's my plug, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah.
Do you charge back your customers for your services?
Oh, you bet.
And how do you base the rate?
Okay. Very high.
Yeah. But I mean, you're competing with the Kinko's down the street,
No,
right?
no. And that because of the lawsuit by SEIU in 2007, they sued the state printer, my predecessor, Jeff Brown, and they sued him, and they said that that outsourcing shouldn't happen, and so they asked the judge to identify whether printing was a service or a commodity. All right, when it was a commodity, the different agencies could take their credit card and go down to Kinko's and pick it up. All right, and the only kind of blush was that if it was over $5,000, it was a trailer bill that the legislature put in every year. If it was over $5,000, they had to get a quote from Office of State Publishing. But if they could get it cheaper, they could go outside, right? So they were having to compete, and things were going down, and they laid off 120 people, and so the union got very upset, and they went, and this judge ruled that it was a service, that printing is a service. Well, when they ruled that this was a service, then it meant it fell under 19130 A and B, which is that if there's a service and a state worker can do it, they have to do it. All right? And so you have to get a special exemption to go out. And the exemption takes about 6 months. And it is reviewed by SEIU and the State Personnel Board and the legal. All right? So what happens is every job that goes out, I'm getting work that I don't want to do. All right? I'd rather they go away. All right? But I have to do it. And so I don't do it real economically. All right? So the way that our rates are put together, it's based upon chargeable hours, the cost center. All right? And we track that through a logic system. And so what happens at the end of the day is that we look at a cost center, 640 offset press or 1965 Denich honcho, and we track it and we say how many hours can we sell on that? All right, what hours do we have available? And this is what our hourly rate. And so then we charge by an hourly rate. The problem is that we're up against a situation to where when we get challenged for going outside, part of the challenge with the State Personnel Board is that they have to show that if they went outside with this low bidder, and again, I tell them, don't go low bid, because low bid is, again, some tips to you. Never say low bid as what you're competing against. Always say, wait a minute,